Loud. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Palen Video Sessions. My name is Mike Steffen. I'm an educational representative for Palen Music Center in the Liberty area, which is outside of Kansas City, Missouri, if you're not from this area. And my role today is just to welcome you all in and turn it over to these two amazing minds who are going to keep you in stitches the whole time. These two ladies, if you don't know who they are, they're going to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their backgrounds and then what they're going to bring to the table. And prepare to take lots of notes. They're going to be sharing their presentation with me, and I will send that out to all of you who signed up ahead of time. So if you did not sign up ahead of time, make sure you shoot me a quick email to request the notes. We're also recording this, so you can have that recording as well to share with any colleagues who weren't able to attend. Yeah, so I know that everybody needs a pick-me-up right now, and this is going to be the perfect one. So we're going to talk about building a committed culture and have a few jokes and laughs along the way, and hopefully this will brighten your day. So without any further ado, Dr. Katy Strickland and Dr. Elise Hepworth, take it away.
So no pressure there, Mike, thanks. So my name is Katy Strickland. I'm the chair of the Department of Fine and Performing Arts at Northwest Missouri State, which is in Maryville, Missouri. I'm also the director of athletic bands here, and I teach a handful of other things. Of course, thanks to Mike and thanks to Palen, that goes without saying. When I was asked to present in this series, I thought about, first of all, what in the world am I qualified to talk about? And then second of all, what would actually be helpful to all of you? And when I settled on this topic, I immediately emailed Elise. Elise is my colleague down the road, 45 minutes away. A lot of folks would think that it's a rival institution. In our opinion, it is not. And I won't say that Elise got her undergraduate from Northwest Missouri State, but I mean, just whatever. So anyway, there's a bro snap just happened down there. Okay. I think Elise is a phenomenal person. We have a very similar philosophy about this topic and many others, and it's paid its weight for us in our programs, and we're so incredibly fortunate for that. So I'm lucky she accepted. I'll throw it to her to introduce, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, Katy, thank you. I wanted to defer to the alpha of this relationship between her and I. So, I'm Elise Hepworth. I'm the director of choral activities at Missouri Western State University in St. Joseph. And I've had the great privilege and honor to serve on some of our leadership positions in our state and in some national capacities. But my greatest passion lies in building family and building culture and building a community. So I know for those vocal folks in the audience, that's something that you're fairly familiar about, that is attached with me. And one of the things that I adore and appreciate most about Katy is that she embodies all of those very same things too. So she is the Pied Piper of marching band. And it's just really cool to be able to share the kind of vision and philosophy of not just building a culture among our students in our classrooms, but also in our music community too, because we're one giant family, no matter where we lie. And especially we're one giant family right now, being so far away from our students. So thank you, Mike, for this invitation, for us allowing, thanks to Katy for this invitation too. I'm very honored.
Sure, and Elise and I will just gush about each other on and off throughout the entire presentation, even though she had the misfortune of living in Mississippi for a little while. So we'll share recipes at the end of this too. So here we go. God almighty. So the overarching ideas here, I'm going to start out with some of the why, and then I'm going to hand it off to Elise. For the majority of this is going to be about the how, because that's where the rubber meets the road, and we know that's why you're here, is don't talk to me about philosophical stuff for an hour. And that's the other piece, is we don't want to talk at you. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. Elise is going to be watching it while I talk, and vice versa. We'll try to address those. Wave vigorously, unmute, and holler. We do want to talk to you throughout this. We don't want to be talking lecture heads at this. The overarching ideas for us, we think, is that there's a few things we got to set you up with up front. This is, and let me share my screen here. And like Mike said, can everybody see that? Mike said, we're going to share this with you, but this is an incredibly worthwhile venture. One of the greatest assets to my teaching, something that took me a long time to figure out, was how to not just have a good band, but to have a good band that people wanted to buy into, the best kind of people. So it's an incredibly huge payoff. but it's hard work. You can't avoid that piece of it. Like most things in teaching and probably in life, the setup is slow and a little bit messy, but on the back end, it starts to run itself and it's a little bit easier and smoother. So it's worth the struggle in the beginning, but it is a little bit of a struggle and you got to embrace that. The other thing is our big overarching idea is you have to be purposeful about your approach. Purposeful about your approach to everything. Even if you figured out how to have good choirs, bands, orchestras, general music classrooms, and make good singers and players and performers, that doesn't mean that they'll buy in. Good kids will still quit. Good kids will quit no matter what, sometimes. But you have to be purposeful with every step that you take and every sort of activity you create, every rehearsal, how you interact with students, how you interact with peers. And we're going to talk about how to do that. One of the first things you have to do is the painful thing that good people always do, and that's look inward. And when you look at the folks who are leaders in business and leaders in academia and in music and everything else, they are thoughtfully and honestly self-reflective. And that's yucky. If you've ever videotaped your own teaching and watched it, you see the things that you didn't realize you were doing that you wish you didn't. So the first thing that you have to do is be willing to be self-reflective. If you're not the kind of student and musician and person that you're wanting your students to be, then it ain't gonna work. It's not gonna happen. You have to model that for them and you have to model it honestly. If you fake it, they'll know it. They're smart enough to figure that out. You can't expect them to be on time if you're late and be prepared if you're not prepared. One of the other thing is that if you think about your interactions with your students in your classrooms, if you have consistent problems, when I was a young teacher, I'm a percussionist. My clarinets were god awful. They were bad. They had horrible tone qualities, squeaky, squawky, chicken sounding sounds on a regular basis. And for too long, I blamed it on them until eventually I got out a clarinet and a summer and a friend, and I learned how to play the clarinet. I can make a great sound on it. I'm still a percussionist who held a clarinet, but I know how to make a great sound and I know what to do and I know what to say and I know what to have other people do to make them into great clarinet players and for my ensemble purposes. So you have to embrace the thing that's not working. If your percussionists are misbehaved, and I'm saying this to you as a percussionist, it's your fault. No offense, I'm sorry. They're bored or they're overwhelmed, one or the other. Now, there's exceptions to that. We've all taught that kid. Okay, who's not your fault? But you need to embrace those things and you can be prepared to control them and control them thoughtfully. Elise and I do want to acknowledge the challenges. We've both taught in the public schools. I taught in rural South Louisiana for several years, mostly high school, some middle school, band. Elise taught in the public and private schools in the Kansas City area. Stop me if I say anything wrong, Elise, for several years also, I think K through 12. So she's done the dance in every way. We don't want you to think we're sitting on the golden college hill and not understanding where you come from. We do. But we also need to acknowledge, I think, some things that we just have to accept and roll with it and move forward. One of those is a big one, and it's on the top of this list, and it's the old school, new school. You can't teach your students the way you were taught, unless you're just out of college, maybe. I cannot teach the way that Frank Wicks taught me. My predecessor at East Ascension High School used to spin his class ring around and pop the students on the cap of the head if he didn't like their behavior. This was 40 years ago. Obviously, you can't do those things. But in a more realistic sense, there used to be the teacher-centered approach where you poured knowledge into your students. You lectured them, you told them you're sharp, you're flat, push in, pull out, do this, do that. Students don't work that way anymore. They have too much access to information to be independent thinkers and doers, and that's a good thing. And kids these days have existed in every day and in every generation. So it's a good thing that they are that way. It makes it harder. They also have more opportunities, there's more sports, there's more activities, more things for them to engage in. So you just have to embrace what the challenges are, but also acknowledge them and that they do make things a little bit harder. And you can see, Elise and I both agree we don't like being read to in presentations, so you can see the other items on here. We won't touch all of them, but we do think they were important to mention. So the other thing is to take that idea, you know, be honest about what the real world is in your classroom, but also be honest about what the real world is within you. So if you would take a moment, literally right now, and consider one of your weaknesses that hampers your success in the music classroom. So for me, like I said, when I was a young teacher, I had a lot of problems with teaching clarinet players to make a good sound. It's a very specific problem. It could be student motivation. It could be student behavior. It could be the voice change for young male singers. It could be music selection. It could be a litany of things. If you can think of one thing, be specific, be brief, and drop it in the comments if you don't mind. If you don't want to share, that's fine. But if you can, throw something in that you consider that keeps coming back and haunting you, and you haven't been able to fix, improve, elevate, address in a way that you wish you could have. For me, at this current time, it would be a few things for sure, because they never go away. Doesn't matter how far along you are in your career. So if you stop and think about those things and drop them into the comments, and even if you don't want to drop them into the comments, that's fine, but keep it in the back of your mind, or in the front of your mind, actually, for a moment. It can be your own planning. It can be procrastination on your part, procrastination on your students' part. It can be their behavior. It can be a litany of topics. And if I can think of more things, Elise keeps making adoring gazes at the comments. So I'm sure it's good stuff. Here we go. So the thing that I want you to do is whatever you dropped into the comments, or whatever you put in the front of your mind as that item, that's what you have to work on this summer. And you cannot get away from it. You cannot run away from it, and it's not their fault. There are some things we cannot control. When I taught in Louisiana, we had a class that we, as teachers, we did not tell the students, affectionately referred to as the zoo band. The zoo band came in right after lunch, and they were in the 7th grade. It was delightful. And pep rallies happened sometimes at lunchtime. There's things you cannot control about that. But you have to look at that item and figure out how you're going to get better at it this summer, whatever it may be. You cannot get away from it. And engage your resources, reach out to me, reach out to Elise, reach out to the applied faculty, reach out, go searching on YouTube. I know in the age of COVID, I found a remarkable amount of resources, and some of them came from Elise. When I was trying to put my class online, I reached out to her for elementary music resources. And then Mike, also, if it's possible to download these comments, and then maybe Elise and I can help some folks with some things when this is all said and done, and send them some resources.
Yeah, I can send you the chat, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. But I challenge you to take that on as your mission this summer, because if you're not the best kind of teacher, if you don't teach your rear end off in every way that you can, and you don't approach this very purposefully, the students will have more trouble buying into what you're doing. It is fun to be good, and you need to set them up to be good, and it doesn't just happen. So on that note, that's a lot of the why and some of the big overarching ideas. The second idea in that I talked about was the purposeful approach. And so I'm going to hand that off to Elise. So I'll be watching the comments, Elise.
Well, as I've been conducting a lot of my research over the last several years, and I've never really been in a program that I arrived and it was just blossoming and healthy and vibrant and had all the people that I needed or could ever want and all the ensembles. So I've spent a majority of the 18 years of my career in building. And I realized that through a lot of the research that some of the requirements or some of the ideas in research that was originating in business were some of the things that I was actually dealing with as a music teacher as well. So we have got to think of, and the first step to building a committed culture is to onboard your students to your culture. I just assume they don't know how to do anything, not that they're not intelligent, wonderful, beautiful humans, but that they just don't know what my classroom looks like, what my expectations are like, how they're supposed to behave in the classroom. So at the beginning of the year, I give them, welcome to everyone. I want to tell you what your expectations of me are. I say, I know you expect me to be on time, to be prepared, to learn something interesting, to be motivating, to be inspirational. And here are my expectations of you. I expect you to arrive on time. I expect you to bring a pencil. I expect you. The whole first day of class is just a way to set the stage for your onboarding opportunities for your students. So Katie, you want to go to the next slide? So some of this has to do with is purposeful and intentional short bursts of team development, group development interventions. So this is also something that originates from the business world, is this, they call it group development interventions instead of team building. It's not the old adage of sitting around a table and trying to build a tower out of popsicle sticks and you know, chewing gum and string and stuff like this. It really has to do with building an effective, meaningful relationship, not only with you and the student, but with them and with the ensemble, each other, because it very much creates a trust and builds loyalty to your program. And you want to also encourage student accountability. When they feel like they have something meaningful to contribute, they're going to be accountable. When they have something meaningful to contribute, they're also going to be healthy leaders. And so I don't let any aspect of my choral program, I'm kind of type A, if you can't notice. I'm a little OCD about stuff too. So I take the students through leadership development. I take them through section leadership development. I give them, just empowering them in every ability. I'm also certified in Kodai and ORF. And that's really been wonderful for me because it places a lot of the instruction on the student, and thus, relieving me of some of the administrative tasks that we get bogged down with. And therefore, we're focused on the administrative tasks that our students suffer. So that's, I think, and you can read this, it also empowers students, and then they go out of the classroom and they can think for themselves, they can run a sectional, they're just better and smarter musicians, just kind of like what Katy said. I used to say, this is what you do, and now this is what you do, and push in and pull out, and all that stuff that throats do in choir. But I don't want to do that. I want them to think for themselves, and that's what really the ultimate, the true outcome that we're hoping for. Is, do you want to go to the next slide there? So some of the strategies here is where I'm getting to the meat. I just don't want to talk about the theory. You all know it's important. You all know that we need it. And especially in this time, in particular time and place that we find ourselves in today, is that this still has to continue or our culture will suffer. And it has to do with short intentional activities. And that may be an email, that may be a Zoom, that may be an asynchronous activity where you're just sending them a video message, but also in the classroom, that those are high fives, those are singer shout outs, instrumental shout outs saying, Katy Strickland, I love how you're here every day, you're here on time, everybody give Katy Strickland 3 whoops, whoop, whoop, whoop. And that just gives her an opportunity to feel celebrated and valued and loved by her peers. I think that's really important. A mentor-mentee program. I encourage every one of you to start this. This has been life-changing for me and my choirs, is that every returning singer gets assigned, or musician gets assigned a freshman or incoming or new singer. So that new singer automatically knows at least one person in that ensemble, because as you know, it's very teacher-centered anyway. They don't get to talk and interact. I mean, it's very, they're focused on me and focused on Dr. Strickland, and we're wanting to create a product. So that gives them one person to go to. That is also the person they have to go to when they don't know what time the concert is, what they're supposed to wear, or when the call time is. That's their person. So not only does it make that connection, then they have that accountability. The mentor has an accountability aspect that they have to protect their mentee and make sure that they're providing them with accurate information. We do brief opportunities for personalized experience. When I took roll, I would ask for the roll call, I would say, what's your spirit animal? What's your favorite pizza? Who is your top favorite musician? And that was just one opportunity, because I knew I had to take roll. It became difficult when the ensemble became bigger, but for them to share something personal about themselves. So also there's the rehearsal shout out, like I demonstrated. And then for our Missouri Western choirs, because I'm also teacher ed and I'm trying to wear all the hats and be all the things to all the people, is that our students lead warm-ups and our students lead the sight reading sequence. So I have conditioned them, word of the day, every time you teach a student something, that we're not going to call it brainwashing, which is really what it is. Let's just like fess up, but we're conditioning our students. We're conditioning them to respond. So they're able to go through and lead the class in a warm-up, and lead the class in the stretches, meditation, lead the class in the sight reading sequence. So that is really, and as much as I'm like, oh, that wasn't perfect, that's great, that is not the hill that I need to die on. That student needed that opportunity. I don't know what that meant to that student. I don't know if they say, oh my gosh, I feel so special and valued and loved and cared for, and I can't wait to teach because I was able to let go of my OCD type A for 5 seconds and let them try it out for themselves. And I can't say that I've ever went to a concert and said, wow, I wish I would have run the sight reading exercises, or wow, I wish I would have done the warm-ups for those days, because obviously my ensemble performances suffered for it. It doesn't happen. Let it go. Let it go.
Sing it. Sing it.
Hold you back anymore. Let it go. Oh, sorry. That was terrible. And
No.
that's also one of the 7 levels of hell for choral directors too. If anybody wants to know. So if you want to go to the next slide. Okay. So some other things that you can do, and the slides that we're going to send you are all these underlined areas are hyperlinks so that you can actually access the materials that I use. This is the section leader development. Katie, if you want to just show them how that works, you could click on it. It'll take you to a Google Doc. And this is, I do a 2-hour workshop every semester for those interested, those who are serving as section leaders and who are interested in section leaders. So I take them through a demonstration of how do you work with difficult people? What do you say? What do you not say? What are the things that are in your control? What are the things that are not in your control? And we have a whole scenario, we role play, and it has changed my life. Like, I don't deal with the things that I used to deal with because the students are equipped to fix it on their own. I'm like, not my problem. I don't care about the drama. You know how to fix it on your own. You know how to mitigate that issue. Please do it. And that has really, as I wish I would have been told that or learned that earlier on in my career. I think I would have suffered less grief maybe.
Elise, can I jump in there?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I have a similar truth about training leaders in the marching band. Some of those kids I see are in this Zoom. I did not do it well or purposefully in the beginning. It's much more purposeful now. We have a manual. I'm not as organized or tech savvy as Elise, so it's not linked here, but I'll be sure to send it out and you can use it in any way that you want to. But I agree with everything that she said in regards to marching band and everything else.
Oh yeah, I just think band and choir and all of these things it's just interchangeable because we're working with people, right? I mean, really, it could be any curriculum or any subject matter because it's just all working with people. Musicians just figure out that we need a lot more attention to that, I think, than maybe other disciplines. But on Fridays, even though it takes a little bit of time, 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm always precious, worried, freaked out about the time that I have because I don't have a lot of time to rehearse, I do stop myself and say, these folks need to laugh, they need to feel connected, they need to feel warm. If they don't feel those things, they're not going to sing those things. They're not going to play those things. It has to come organically. It cannot be forced. So I do a funny video clip. If you click on that video clip, you don't have to do it right now, Katie, but that is the kid president. I show motivational videos, things like, here's a hot dog. You just got to watch it. It's really, really cute. And people give high fives to each other and, can't do that now, but I could still do that on a Zoom. I could still do that in a video message to my students. It just has to be short and brief and meaningful. Number 3.3, find constructive ways for students to provide solve problems. That doesn't mean that I'm giving them and like, what do you want to do? I'm saying, okay, folks, soprano section, I'll say, I'm going to stop you right there. Now, what do you think I might say to you? Because I've conditioned them to then strategically think, critical think, and then come up with their own singer solutions. At first, it's not great, but it has to be, it takes years to develop this, which Dr. Strickland alluded to at the beginning of our session, is that these are all short, intentional, meaningful things that have to be done for an extended period of time to really see a successful output. The creating a musical experience that be shared from generation to generation, that's singing your alma mater, that's singing if you have a winter program or playing a winter program, that's your alumni, involving, engaging your community and alumni. And that's, I know I've got a student, a former student here, that she knows that we did a lot of these things, that we want to go and sing underneath the clock tower. We want to do holding hands. I mean, it's just instrumental people. You don't have to hold hands. It's the singer thing. It's okay. But it's just one of those things. It's just building that sense of belonging. I mean, we really want to belong more than anything. Having the sense of proprioception. Proprioception is just a big word for self-awareness. And that is trying to just get people to think outside the box, try new things. And then when you ask something of them that is uncomfortable for them, they are less likely to resist. So for instance, we do exercises where we make concerted eye contact with people and not break. And boy, that is an uncomfortable thing for a lot of students to do. We have movement, exploration, and body movement. Now that's something that people aren't comfortable to do, but once you condition them to do it, they're more likely to take measured risks, and they're more likely to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Dr. Strickland had, we were talked about having instrumentalists sing all of their lines. I mean, at first they might look at you and say, why would I do that? But boy, it develops a great inner ear. There's all kinds of wonderful musical reasons behind that. But the idea is that the more risk-taking and the safer, more vulnerable space that you're creating to take those risks, the more likely they're going to just jump in and do whatever you tell them. My students get up and do folk dances and all kinds of weird stuff, and no one questions me, which is so strange. I mean, there's sometimes where I'm like, these people are doing the most bizarre things and nobody is questioning it, at least out loud, which is, again, conditioning. And then I talk about being a family at every rehearsal too. I mean, it might not feel very authentic at first, but you will find that if you do anything enough, it'll become very authentic. So it's not, oh, great job, guys. See you next time. This was wonderful. It's looking at them and say, I value you. I appreciate you. I am proud of you. I can't wait to see what you're going to do next time. And that just goes so far. It's unbelievable. And you have students that begin to open up to you musically in a way. And I had somebody in the chat say, I have a hard time making connections with students. You don't have to get mushy with them. You just have to notice them. You just have to acknowledge their presence and acknowledge that they're here and that they're trying their best, and give them some, it might feel uncomfortable for you, but you all are adults and you can get over that for 5 seconds. Just kidding. No, I'm serious. And it's just like, just try it. It really really goes a long way. So that's enough on that side, because I want to get to your comments and your questions and things. So do you want to take this one, Katie?
Sure. One of the things we talked about when we were putting together this presentation is that we both believe in the importance of, when you're talking about being purposeful, the beginnings and ends. I am really thoughtful with the marching band here at Northwest, and I think Elise has her own version of how this has been successful for her at Missouri Western, with buy-in and numbers and everything else. Here at Northwest, the greatest I guess evidence of success for me that I'm very proud of is that our marching band went from 130 to 196 in about 4 years.
I guess that's okay. I mean, if that's like your standard, whatever.
We basically just found people on the street and said, hey, you want to be in band? And they said, okay.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Right? We let anybody into Northwest. So, so it was, and it had everything to do with that. At first, I did not trust my students, and I was very regimented with them. Some of the folks in this audience were in that band. And as the more I opened up and let them have a voice and embrace them, and Elise is a lot more touchy-feely than me. I am not gushy. They send her Mother's Day presents, not me.
It's only under threats. I mean, this
Right.
is all about threatening people.
Right, there you go.
It's like
You sent
mommy,
her address.
mommy dearest situation here.
Wire hangers are involved. So,
Wire hangers.
But I do, when you talk about you have a hard time connecting with students, I get it. I have some social anxiety, and pretty much everybody does a little bit. They're lying if they don't say they do. But I do make a point to remember that, you know, Colton got a new job. I ask him how it's going. Season got married. I ask her how it's going. You know, how's her new job in Columbia? I remember that she works in Columbia. And, you know, if a guy in Phi Mu Alpha passes me by in the hallway and he's in pin attire, I say, hey, John, you sure look nice today. Thanks, Dr. Strickland. And I'm not faking it. It's true. But I'm not getting in their personal business. They are not my friends. I do not friend them on Facebook until they graduate. But I do care about what they show up with and bring to rehearsal. And so to get back to this beginnings and endings thing, you have to be very purposeful about how you start things. And you can look at that from the macro level. How do you bring new students into your program? They will not just realize that this is how you act in choir or band. You have to set up scenarios so that they understand. The singing thing with our marching band, the first time, we always sing. The first time we do it, you can see a lot of the freshmen who haven't done it in high school, they look very like, no, I'm not doing this. And I don't apologize. I don't say, oh, I'm sorry, it'll be okay, you don't have to. I just say, this is what we do. Sing in your range. Here we go. And we sing. Ta-da. And then they realize everybody else is doing it. Some of them better, some of them worse. And off we go and everybody sings. So you have to be very purposeful about how you do those things. If you think about the macro, how do you bring in new students? How do you start the year? How do you end the year? How do you have everybody leave on a happy note? How do you start on a positive note and make people feel welcome, people who are scared and afraid and new? The first thing that I have the marching band do is I give them all a note card and I say, why are you here? And they have to write on that note card and give it back to me and say, what is the biggest reason why they're there? And I take those note cards and in the banquet at the end of the year, I share some of them. And people, they can be anonymous or put their names on them. And they'll say hysterical things. My favorite one was my girlfriend came to Northwest and then she broke up with me and here I am. Another one was I bought a new trumpet and it was expensive. So, but then they also range to, this one makes me want to get up in the morning. This is why this keeps me wanting to move forward. This is my family. This is everything to me. I love these people. And you would never think you get what you get. And it helps you get to know your students, you know where they're coming from and who they are. But that's the first thing we do. And I talk about why you should want to be here, what should motivate you. If you're here because your parents tell you you have to, which by the way, that was my first day of band. My mother made me join the band at Gainesville High School. She pulled up to the front door and shoved me out of the car, kicking and screaming. So that was me, but then I bought in. So if you are here because mom made you, okay, thanks mom. We're gonna hope to try to change that viewpoint. And then you think about how you end things. We end our rehearsals with the hookah chant. Maybe you hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Maybe you know, at LSU, we said, go Tigers, fight, 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 clap, 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 bam. And we all walked away. It's as touchy-feely as you want to make it. But it's important to end together and to start together. I believe in that, and to do it very purposefully and to draw students in. And then it's in the macro level, senior farewells, give kids something to look forward to, something I can't wait until I get the opportunity to be the person who does the thing at the end of the year or gets the thing or whatever. We took old band uniforms and cut the logos out of them and gave them out as a gift, put them in a shadow box. People are just so touched by that and they hold on to those things. And then you can see a lot of the other examples here on the slide. So we want to stop talking. We've talked long enough, I think about half the time. So I know we've been throwing around some answers on the chat, and then some. I really appreciate that a lot of you guys have been chipping in to share things too. Please don't hesitate to do that. So Ann Clark, I know you're doing some of that and I really appreciate it. And we're going to pull down, you will not hear the hookah chant from me, Mike Steffen.
I'm going to put in our group
Dalton
chat, if I
Haberman.
can, just an example of what our choir retreat looks like. We do it by schedule. So if you want to look at that and have that and steal it, whatever, you can have anything I have. Mine is yours.
Same here. Yep, I'll share it.
Oh, I just shared it with Mike. Sorry, Mike, I don't want you just to have this. Everybody should have this. Sorry.
Everybody should have it. Well, while they're getting their questions formulated, I know they've got a lot swimming in their heads. Let me be the first one to say thank you to the two of you for the energy and the time and the care that you put into sharing all your ideas with everybody just now. And it was really concise and really clearly laid out, and it was practical. And somebody put in there that they have a trouble with vulnerability, and I think you two show a great deal of that with strength. I think sometimes we confuse vulnerability with weakness, but the two of you showing how vulnerable you are as humans, I think shows the strength. Yeah,
that's really important that you say that too. There's an author named, a psychologist actually, Brene Brown. I know that she's been pretty big, especially because of her vulnerability presentation on Netflix. If you haven't seen her, I would highly recommend it. And she talks about feeling uncomfortable about being vulnerable. It does not, and it's not like that it's weakness too. It's also a sense of privacy, right? We don't want people to know everything. I personally am vulnerable, but I don't want people to know all the bad things about me too. Sure. Or just, there's like that definite, and there's a boundary and a line. But my suggestion is to start small and to make steps, but make it intentional and make it daily. And you will be amazed how you grow. It's not something that you just pop into overnight. Oh yeah. Daring greatly. Love Brene Brown. Love her.
And can you guys both speak to this? Emily's got a great question about how do you start over? How easy is it to refine your school year's beginning, even if you've already taught at the school for a year? How easy is it to facilitate a second first impression? Talk about how to restart after you've already not been happy with your start.
It's something that is small. I've had that. I had a really, really bad year a few years ago where I just thought it was just like everything I had worked for was just not going well. And we'd had like a lot of internal conflict in the ensembles, and I had shown my emotion more than I normally do. I usually have this ability to repress any negativity, and it all comes out happy, but I just like push it down, you just push down your feelings, but it just comes out really nice. But that I had to start over, but it just had to do with any relationship. It's bridge building. It's small. I notice statements. So I would just, Emily, I would say, I noticed that you have a scarf on today. I noticed. Yeah. Glad you're here. I didn't say good. I didn't say bad. I just acknowledged her presence and that she was here. And it's not meaningful, but it's a tiny step towards building that bridge. There's a great book called Love and Logic for the Teacher. It's 20 years old now. There's a couple of editions out there, but that really talks a lot about building student relationships in a meaningful way. And it always starts with an I notice statement. I notice you're here. Yep. Love and Logic for the Teacher. Love it. It's fantastic. Totally changed how I operated with my students.
The other thing I would say is, and I know you have to vary things depending on the level. So, if you're talking about sixth graders, you cater the message in different ways, but you got to be honest with your students. So I admit my mistakes. I kind of make a joke when I make a mistake in front of the ensemble. I kind of laugh and say, ha, PhD, woohoo, money well spent. You gotta, if you don't acknowledge your mistakes, they're not going to trust you, and they're not going to make mistakes in front of you. So if you made some mistakes the previous year, there might be a little bit of, and I'm not saying you sit down and say, I'm sorry, I was a bad teacher. No. But when you get to something that you didn't do well the previous year, say, I know last year we didn't do this so well, and I'm sorry, I could have done that better. This year we're going to do this.
Awesome.
I think apologies go a long way. I apologized to a student once and they sobbed because they never had an adult apologize to them before.
Wow.
So that there's a lot of students that come with, you know, carry trauma to your classroom, and they're projecting their trauma on you because they don't trust other adults. And so I also just, it's not about you. It's not about you. That's why I just keep telling myself out over and over again. When a student acts out, they're having problems. College students do it too, at different levels and in different ways. It manifests itself in different ways than when, you know, I was teaching 7-12 or even like early childhood, but it's just not about you, and keep telling yourself over and over again.
I think a lot of the earlier questions in the chat, when we asked you to put in what's your greatest challenge, a lot of people referred to, and there's an obvious reason why you're in this session, motivating students, but specifically motivating them to practice, and to buy in from that regard. And I lived that life. I tried to bribe my students when I was younger and give them stupid, tangible rewards. That only works up through 5th grade, FYI, if even that far. It did not bring back rewards. So I think you need to think about, one, do you really truly teach your tail off? You have to teach your tail off. Do you know how to fix a bad clarinet sound? Do you know how to make a snare drummer play a good buzz roll? Insert vocal example that I'll, lovely.
Wonderful.
Delightful. How do you know how to fix their problems and make them better? Because they will not buy in if you don't.
And also to that, you have to teach them how to practice.
That, exactly. That was the next thing on my list. They don't know. Stop interrupting me. Sorry. Why did I invite you?
I'm not sorry.
Yeah, no, please do elaborate on that, because I agree. I passed some of the practice rooms here in our building, and I used to pass the practice rooms when I taught high school. They don't know how to practice.
Yep.
Give them a checklist, 10 steps to practicing, how to chunk it, how to go over. Start with the thing that you stink at most, because there's a lot of research that says that the heavier cognitive load activity should happen at the beginning of the rehearsal. It should happen at the beginning of the practice. So those things that take the brain power, that it exhausts you, that should happen first. And it's same thing with practice rooms, but I, didn't know how to practice either. So I went in and I practiced. I played the clarinet and the piano, and I sang, and I would practice always the stuff I was good at first. And then I got bored, or then I got discouraged. And you have to say, charge at the thing that you feel the least secure about. Do that in short bursts, 10 minutes tops, move on to the next thing. And then once they feel that happening, then they're able to capitalize on that and succeed. And then they're going to want to practice more. So a lot of it has to do with just, they don't know how. It's part of the onboarding process. They just don't know how.
When I taught high school drumline at the end of the rehearsals in band camp, I'd say, okay, what are you going to work on? What are you going to work on? What are you going to work on? 15 minutes before you come back the next day. Tell me the thing. And I wrote it down. And then they come back the next day and I'd say, okay, play that for me. Play that for me. If we had time. Maybe that day I hit this kid, or not hit this kid. I got to this kid or got to that kid or whatever. And then the other thing is, think about what the rewards are, especially when you're talking about younger kids. So Robert Duke, he wrote a really good article about fostering students to be independent. And he compared practicing to video games, because kids will sit for hours and try to beat a video game. Why? And it's because John is saying yes. It's because the challenge is just above what they're able to do. And then when they get the challenge, they get a reward. And then the next challenge is just above. If it's too far up, they won't meet it. They get frustrated. They get anxious. They're done. If it's too low, they're bored. They're done. So are you picking music, and are you giving them challenges that they can meet? And I know it's not easy because everybody's at a different level, but you can get there. And that might be some kids doing solos, and some kids doing ensembles, and some kids taking leadership roles. And so there are challenges in their teaching, some kids having solos, some whatever. And then number 2, is there a payoff? Do you recognize when they play really well? Do you stop everything and say, that was amazing? That was amazing. Thank you.
And if you don't know how to work with kids because maybe they even bring trauma to the classroom and it's not about what's going on in your class or how little they've practiced, there's a couple of really good resources that I'll share with you. This is a book called Relationship Responsibility and Regulation. This is Trauma Invested Practices Is that coming up backwards?
No, we
No,
got
you're
it.
good.
I'm typing
Oh.
it into the chat too.
You can't read this backwards. What's wrong with you? And that's a really great book because it helped me step back and evaluate really what the underlying issue was. It wasn't that they didn't practice, it was that they were taking care of their sibling. It was that their parents are in the middle of a divorce. It's that they have a parent in jail. It's that they're food insecure. It's that, you know, they have a sibling that's beating up on them. Another great resource is, and I don't know if you've read this, but it's called What Great Teachers Do Differently. If you have a summer read, this is a wonderful resource too, to get some of those different ideas that essentially what we're talking about today. It's like having one great day out of 10. That's a win. You know, it's really putting your teaching and your career in perspective.
I think it's also, I think it's worthwhile to, when I got frustrated with a certain thing, like I was with this early on, because I was not good at it, my kids didn't buy in, I went to see the people whose kids bought in and say, can we go have lunch? Can I talk to you? Can you share? And they love to, and they're happy to. And it was good for my soul. It made me feel better and proactive.
Yeah, get that administrator to give you a day off every quarter or every semester to go do professional development by spending a day with somebody who you admire in your field in the area. Generally, they will go along with that. If they are insecure about you staying, they will feel weird about it and they think that you're job hopping. They think that you're looking for other opportunities. You have to convince them that you are doing that for the kids because you need other ideas and you need to be fed. So I would highly recommend that too. So ladies, we had a question. Let's pretend that all of us here are walking into your program. We're new, you know, we are joining either, you pick an option. We're joining a month after the school year started. So we're moving in or jumping into the program a month after the school year started, or we are coming in our last year of your program, you know, our senior year of high school or senior year of college. How do you, what are some tangible things you do to welcome us to your program? What are some of those things?
For me, we've had some of those students come into the marching band, and that's hard because a lot of times, and it happened, we did a school split when I taught high school, and they reassigned students to my high school, which was incredibly hard for them. So the first thing we did was sit down, you're welcome here, you know, open up the opportunities to them that others have had fairly, in a fair way. That's hard to do sometimes because they haven't, you know, put in the work that others have in that group, but acknowledge that, you know, you're here, you're with us now, we appreciate, you know, is there anything that we can do to welcome you? Is there anything that your group did that you wish we did? And some of that stuff you'll say, thank you, and no. But there might be some things that you can do to bring them into the fold. And then I think check in a lot. Some kids you got to check in with a lot. If somebody's jumping in while the train already started moving, and maybe they were on a train that they much rather would be back on, you need to check in a lot and just make sure everything's okay. And talking about being purposeful, you purposefully set up their friendships. That sounds controlling, but it's true. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. Because, and you know, so-and-so is this kid who will be like, hey, come with me. Let's go to dinner together. Now that's college. Let's, you know, what are you doing? This, you know, can I help you with that? Where's it? Let me show you where the cafeteria is. Let me walk you here. And they'll pay attention and see when they're sitting by themselves in the corner and do something about it.
And that's a big one, that we have a welcome wagon for choir too. And it's 3 or 4 students that serve on that committee. And sometimes they don't need to, but they're the ones that welcome any new singer or invite people to dinner. They're the ones that are super extroverted and excited to do that. And that has been really effective. Also, I approached that student and I asked them this very pointed question. I say, how are you doing? Are you happy? Are you happy you're here? Are you enjoying yourself? What do you think about choir? Are you having a good time? That I asked a kid once if they were happy, and they were like, what do you mean? Am I happy? What does that mean? And I just think we forget that the reason why we're doing this is because it brings us joy. It brings us some sort of like aesthetic, it has an aesthetic, you know, response. It gives us something that that clings to it. I think we get too far in the weeds thinking about the right notes and the right rhythms and the musical line and all of this. And especially, I mean, it's just like a good summation of what we're talking about today. It's all about the people. And if you take care of the person, the music will follow. I guarantee it. That sounded like some sort of like a pillow commercial, didn't it? I guarantee it. But it's so true. And that goes for our colleagues. That goes for our music community. It's like celebrating people, having your students see that you're modeling all the good behavior that you want them to see. If my students know that I have a great relationship with faculty at Northwest, not just because I went there too, but because they know that I'm happy for them. I'm happy at their success. I celebrate their success. I have no problem saying, wow, that is a great school up there. Look at how great they are. And the students are like, yeah, okay, that's not a threatening thing. That's okay to be happy. That doesn't diminish my excellence or my ability to be successful at all. It doesn't say that I'm less.
You have to teach your students how to compete. Our world is too competitive. That's my opinion. Elise wrote a great article about that in the last MMEA or 2 MMEA magazines ago. It's too competitive. I'm not saying we should stop competing, but we make it the be all and end all, winning, beating someone with music.
And it happens in our ensembles too.
Yeah. I'm going to beat you for first chair. I'm going to,
I'm going to shame you into practicing.
Yes.
You're the weak link. Get out. That happens all the time.
There is healthy competition. And you have to teach kids, you literally have to teach them how to be competitive. You have to teach them how to win with grace and how to lose with grace and how to cheer somebody else on. I used to tell my high school band, this is how you will act when they call your rating over the microphone. You will do this, this, and this. You will not do this, this, and this.
Absolutely.
And even in the ensemble too. So if I have a singer that's struggling, what happens is that in the past, people would like gang up on that singer and tell them how they were the weak link and, oh, this is terrible rehearsal because so-and-so's not prepared. And I told them, it's your responsibility. If they're struggling, you reach out a hand, you do not shame. And that goes a long, long way. And it's just something our whole culture could take a lesson from, is like, rather than shaming, reaching out a hand and saying, hey, I notice you're struggling. How can I help you? So I get so fired up about this stuff, and Katy and I feed it off one another. So I'm sorry if I'm a little frantic about it.
The other thing I'd say, you're good. The other thing I'd say is I've had people say to me, and I used to say this, I can't afford to do this. I don't have time to do all these things. My band we need to practice. We need to practice our music. I don't have time to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and da-da-da-da. You can't afford not to. Because the time you spend doing some of this stuff within reason, I mean, don't overdo it, will make the time you spend rehearsing go faster and be more efficient and be more enjoyable. When you like what you're doing, it goes by faster and it's more rewarding. You can't afford not to do it.
And it retains your singers and your instrumentalists. And I mean, it's not like we're shutting people out because we got too many people interested in music right now. We're recruiting. I mean, that's like a huge topic at a lot of conferences, but your behavior and your demonstration and the culture that you set is way louder and a way better advertisement for your program than you just going, hey, you want to be in this group? Because they'll leave if they don't feel valued and they don't feel like it's something worth their time, they'll leave.
Absolutely. Hey, y'all, we've got a couple of other books that have been put in the chat by John Bell and Ann Clark. So make sure you check those out, write those down. I will do my best to get those put in the notes that go to you.
We actually also, at the end of the PowerPoint that we're going to share, there's a list of resources that Elise put the vast majority of that together. So thanks to her, but there's a bibliography. I don't know if all this is on there, but there's a good handful of stuff if anybody's looking for resources.
Perfect.
And we're a resource forever. Like, we are never, I'm speaking for Katy, we're never too busy for colleagues. I'm never, ever too busy. Yeah, maybe. Depends on who it is. I don't know. Just kidding.
Dalton Haberman.
Yeah. Oh, literally. Any school, any place, any state.
You got some dust on your lip, Dalton.
I'd much rather talk about these things and email about these things than most of the emails I get. So please.
Amen. Amen.
A rising tide lifts all ships.
There you go. There you go. So, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this today. Thank you to our two wonderful presenters. I knew that everybody who was going to be on this call was going to laugh a lot. Yeah, please give them some jazz hands, give them some claps. I knew that everybody that was going to be on this call was going to laugh and was going to be their hearts were going to be warmed by this. We all need this stuff right now. You know, we all need to be lifted up and encouraged. And happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Holy cow.
Yay, happy Teacher
Yay.
Appreciation Week.
Thank you all for preparing young people and sending them our way and doing what you do. We were there, and it's hard, but it's so awesome, and we appreciate you all so much. Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Elise, for saying yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Katy. I love you to pieces. You're my hero.
Well, thanks again to Palen Music for supporting us in doing these. We've got one tomorrow morning that's all about percussion. That's at 11 a.m. It's percussion from kind of beginners through professional level, or well, through upper level anyway, I should say. That's going to be held at 11 a.m. tomorrow. So if you did not get the link to that, you want to email me, feel free to. I'll stick my email real quick in the chat if you don't have it yet. Please feel free, folks, to invite anybody you want to these. This is not meant to be an exclusive group that only people that we know, or only people that work with Palen, or only whatever, you know, that everybody is welcome. This is a open music education community where we want to share and pass on information to each other. So please spread the word and invite your friends. And then on Friday, we've got one with Jan Gippo, who was the St. Louis Symphony piccolo and flutist. He literally wrote the book on how to play the piccolo, literally wrote the book. If you have piccolo players that you're disappointed with, you need to come see Jan Gippo on Friday afternoon with me to steal some ideas. So
Beelzebub's whistle. Good luck with that.
Beelzebub's whistle. All right, y'all. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.